Hi, I want to talk about a little experiment I did inspired by a Star Trek Next Generation episode called Schism. And just briefly, as Wikipedia says, there's a part of the episode where the crew uses the holodeck to reconstruct and refine their fragmented memories and impressions of events. So let me show you the conversation that I was having. And I didn't remember the story that well, so I just asked ChatGPT do you know this episode? And it came back with some other episode. So then I remembered a bit more about it, and this time it it described the episode I was thinking of, and talked about how they end up describing an alien operating table in a strange room and all this. So then asked if ChatGPT knew what they first say on the holodeck to start the visualization process. And ChatGPT hallucinates this. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't read the transcript of the episode till much later. So, so I ask if ChatGPT can create a 3D visualization web page that corresponds to what Riker said to start things. And it creates this web page, which uses this library 3.js. And so if you notice here, let's see, 4 feet away, 4 meters away, and it's 2 by 1. And it gets that, like, here's the 2 by 1. And the somewhere there's oh yeah, the door is for the cameras, which is like what Riker is saying, 44 meters away. It creates this. So let me show you what that looked like. Ah, I'll have to. So in this Google Doc, I walk through how all this worked. So what it first does is it generates this, which isn't very interesting, and it's just a door. And but then I said, could you make a camera move around? And now we could see the door as the camera is kind of flying around the door. Um, so the so I go on with this where ask it what else was said, and it says that Troy had said there was a table, and when I here's the table, which is kind of a tabletop floating in the air, and um, so I said, well, let me show you more of the what happens here. Oh, by the way, it explains a lot of the code, which is nice of it. Here's the animating the camera. Um, so I asked what was said next, and Troy says this, and this is actually pretty close to some sense what really happens in that episode. Um, so I said, could you add Troy's instructions, the website, and that's where we got this sort of floating tabletop. And then I said, tables have legs, and she said it was oblong, not rectangular. Um, yeah. So, and then there's this funny thing here. What it does, it to make the four legs, it has two nested uh, for loops, and it's buggy. So as a result, the you only see two legs instead of four because two of them are at the exact same location, and it only relies on the I here and not the J to place where the legs are. So that was a bit of an issue. And I pointed out, but I also, if you tell ChatGPT many problems at once, the fact that they're overlapping, they shouldn't, and the table shouldn't be vertical, but it should, and two legs aren't enough. It doesn't remember to do all those sorts of things. So, but here's as far as it got. And added a floor, and then made it oblong, and and it still has only two legs that you could see. Okay, so then I thought, well, this is somewhat promising. Let's go find the actual transcript of the episode. And actually, every time a crew member says, "Computer, show me a table or something," I'll ask ChatGPT the exact same thing. So, sure enough, the first instruction was, "Troy, show me a computer." And the in the episode, the computer doesn't kind of you have much common sense. It says there's 5,047 different tables. What kind of table do you want? And it goes on, back and forth with that. So what I entered to start this conversation is show me a table, and then in parentheses using 3.js to create a web page, because otherwise it might use Python or it might do anything. And it comes back with an example that was decent, and it says it's a simple one. You might want to adjust all these different parameters. And here's what the result was. So it looks like a table. So I'm going to be showing you the conversation as well. So here's the conversation. Oh, I have to go back to this one. So, by the way, this is a scene from the Star Trek episode where she asks for a table, and that's what the Star Trek Enterprise computer produces in the holodeck. And LaForge says, reduce the height by 25% or something. So, I do the same thing. I say, but before that, I say add control so I can actually see it, because I'm not in the holodeck, so I want to be able to move around. And then, so it adds, it is quite a problem adding this very simple library, because it keeps using different ways of importing things. And that's part of an issue about Node.js, JavaScript versus the browser versions. And so it keeps kind of importing things incorrectly, and it doesn't even have the right add-on to do the camera stuff. And I keep getting errors, and it then suggests that I set up my own server, and I say, I don't want to do that. I just want to use, a script element or something. And it still doesn't get it right. So it comes up with it. So it tells me to go to this repository where I could get it and make it local, and that didn't exactly help. But then I thought, well, while I'm on that website, I just say, here's the documentation that I found, and I just copy and paste it goes on and on with this. So this was just copy and pasting from the documentation. Documentation itself includes, of course, some code. That's what threw me off for a second there. And it says, it makes it very clear how to set it up and what to do. And then it still has a little bit of a problem where it thinks I want to decide what version I want. So it leaves it like this. And we have a back and forth where I say, just the most recent one, and it still thinks most recent from its memory of 2 years ago. And I said, what happens if we don't provide any version? And that'll be fine. So we finally got a way to see the the table with where I can, move the camera, I can zoom in and so on. That was quite a pain, but it was kind of understandable as to why I was having troubles. So then finally I gave it LaForge's comment, and the result wasn't too satisfactory. It did that, but it forgot to make the legs connect anymore. So, but then I mentioned that problem and it fixed it or something. So then, um, uh, in the dialogue, um, I missed the fact that Worf talks about inclining it and changing the surface area, making it smaller or something. So I tried. The next thing I did was Troy's command to make. Her command to make the metal table, and I didn't notice the Worf one, so I skipped that. So there was still some more little backs and forth, and I got. By the way, somewhere it said, it's supposed to be dim, and there's supposed to be a light from above, and I didn't really realize that only if I look at it like this am I going to see the light. So I incorrectly told it that I couldn't see the what was going on very well. I didn't think it had worked, but it had. And then LaForge said there was a light right in my face, a bright light. So give a bright light above. And, it's again back and forth. And, in the episode where LaForge had to say, how high it was and what kind of light source, and it had to be brighter and brighter and stuff. So I just said, give me a bright light right above the table. And so then we got one that, maybe that's the one I showed you. Sorry. So then Troy says there was a restraining arm on the right, so connected to the midpoint of the right side of the table. But ChatGPT added this sort of pole here, but it's wouldn't call it the right side. Well, right, which direction? But, and then Riker says to put controls on the restraining arm control lights. And I was pretty impressed that what ChatGPT did was actually added two little light sources that were red here, meant to be representing LEDs, a little control panel there. So then this other character says there should be computer create a metal swing arm, double jointed, total length, blah, 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 connected to the head of the table. And I didn't try to fix this, but for some reason, ChatGPT, this is no longer connected, and then this new thing doesn't really look like the description, and it's not connected. But note, I could have kept going and complained and eventually got it right. But then this was kind of interesting that Worf goes on talking about, well, scissors, well, not quite scissors, but there's this grip and it's got jagged edges and everything. And so when I saw this, I didn't really realize at first that it really had done this. Because if you look at the top of this, and again, the lighting's poor because that's the way they described it, that there was just a bright light from above. But anyways, you could see the kind of jagged scissors-like thing that it came up with here. And then I finally later realized I forgot this command from Worf about reducing the surface area and inclining it. And I thought it was kind of funny that it says, well, to reduce it by 20%, I'll reduce each dimension by by 10%, so that that'll be make it 81%. So it's almost 20%. So and uh, so it did that, but it forgot to keep the legs um, attached. But it is tilted. Whoops. Yeah. And so I said, "Oh, the legs aren't connected," and it improved it. The legs are much closer to being connected, but they're not perfect. It's a little tricky. These legs kind of go through, and these ones are still missing by a bit. All right. There's some screenshots, but this is pretty silly in the episode. Without adding much, they had to give such detailed instructions to the computer to create things in the holodeck, but then suddenly it generates this complicated contraption, which is unlike what ChatGPT could do. So if you'd like to look into this in any more detail, here's the QR code for this document, which has links to both the ChatGPT conversations and the resulting visualizations. So thanks for watching, and if you have any questions or um, comments, here's my email. Happy to discuss this. Thanks for watching. Bye.